Hello, and welcome to Like Isaiah, the channel where I talk about life. Now, this topic that I'm getting ready to talk about right now it blew up on social media. I have been looking and refreshing all day and just reading the comments. But the backstory is it's about a mother who son fell on hard times, and she allowed him to come back under the stipulation that he, I guess, clean up after himself, don't have like overnight stay, or people coming and staying overnight, and to go to church. Now, this touched really close to my heart. I'm gonna read the status and then let's unpack what she says, like line by line, but I'm gonna read the whole thing first. This is on Facebook. I put my son out last week because he couldn't follow my house rules. He's 27, fell on hard times, so I allowed him to move back in 6 months ago. I have three house rules: no overnight company. If you mess up, clean up, and you gotta go to church on Sundays. That's it. He grew up going to church every Sunday, so it's in him. He missed 3 weeks back to back, so I addressed him and he told me that he'll go next week. Next week came and he still didn't go. After about 2 months, I sat him down and had a heart to heart conversation with him and told him if he couldn't follow my house rules, he needs to find someone else to stay. We agreed to disagree, and he said he'll be gone by Friday. My husband told me I was wrong because he has to find himself, but I believe if he goes to church, he'll find some direction. By Wednesday, my son was gone. I went from talking to him daily to once a week, maybe, but he talks to his father daily. Was I wrong for putting him out? I don't think so because my house, my rules, but I want an outside opinion. This is the most craziest thing I've ever. It's not crazy because I see parallels. I'm not this person, by the way, but I can see the parallels. So that's why I felt really strongly. It tugged on my heartstrings. Though my situation wasn't quite like that, it was very, very similar. So let's go by this line by line, and then I'm gonna give my opinion. So, I put my son out last week because he couldn't follow my house rules. He's 27, fell on hard times, so I allowed him to move back in 6 months ago. Okay, that happens. I had to start over and move back home. It's For one, it's already humbling to have to do it. And I understand having rules and boundaries and systems, I guess, into place to keep the house flowing. So I understand that. I guess I understand the expectations. I think it's good to have expectations to a degree, especially when it comes to your child. There's really no black or white, even though some people may say, well, you got rules, you follow the rules. Okay, I don't really have any gripes with this. I have three rules: no overnight company. That's understandable because you don't want a bunch of people in and out your house. You know what I'm saying? Like I get that. You don't want a bunch of people in and out your house. So if he's 27, he's living an adult life. He's an adult. So if he wanted to be an adult and do adult things, more than likely he would go out of the house, not bring it in out of respect. That makes sense. I get that. If you mess up, clean up, and you got to go to church on Sundays. Okay, if you mess up, if you make a mess, I'm assuming she's saying if you mess up, clean up. So if you make a mess, clean up after yourself. That makes sense too. And you got to go to church on Sundays. That's the only one I have a problem with because him being a 27-year-old, it almost feels like it almost feels like you're gonna follow my faith or you're gonna have to get out. But this is your child. This is your child who's coming to you humbly because they have nowhere else to go. I think to put that kind of spiritual expectation on somebody who you don't even know, regardless of how they grew up, I think that's nasty work. I think that's extremely nasty, especially when they're an adult and they've already went out and experienced life on their terms to come back in and say, well, you need to do this. I think it's very nasty because who says he's even a Christian at this point? Even though he agreed, it sounds like he was desperate. It sounds like he was desperate. I've been desperate, and you just like, okay, I'll agree to this, even though it's going to be annoying. I'll agree to this because what else am I do is be on the street. He missed 3 weeks back to back, so I addressed him, and he told me that he'll go next week. Next week came, he still didn't go. Well, why didn't he go? It's obvious that the church makes him uncomfortable, and that's his story to tell. find out why the church makes them uncomfortable. Because I wouldn't want to go. I mean, if I'm, especially if you're an adult and you're being forced to go someplace where, for one, you have no connection with, this, and you're not moved by this. That's miserable. That would make people miserable, regardless if that's the rules. That would make people miserable. That would make people miserable. I mean, because how do you feel about somebody coming and telling you, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, especially something that is church. You know what I'm saying? It's church. It's church. It's not like it's work where you literally need to do this to survive, so you kind of go along and get along. And, there's people who say, well, he agreed to it. It's really crazy how people are mentally able to like disconnect, like connect and disconnect when it comes to empathy. I don't lead off with spirituality. To me, spirituality comes second, empathy comes first, because that's my natural who I am at my core before I'm getting diluted by teachings. My natural empathy. And a lot of people don't have natural empathy. A lot of people don't have natural empathy, and it's sad. It's sad. After about 2 months, I sat him down and had a heart to heart conversation with him and told him if he couldn't follow my rules, he needs to find someone else to stay. Okay, so now you're threatening him with your son, who you gave birth to, not like a random person. You're threatening your child, no matter the age. A child is still a child. Like, we're all still be somebody's child. Like, no, it doesn't matter about the age. If he couldn't follow my house rules, he needs to find someone else to stay. He's going to forever remember this. He's not going to forget this. He will always remember this. But there's obviously a disconnect between why he won't go to church. And that's his journey. That's his journey. You done had your journey. You done did your soul searching. Mom, you've done your soul searching. So let him find his the way that he wants to find it. I just that did more harm than good. I find stuff like that to truly to be inadvertently evil, because you didn't intend to be this way, but to say you can't have shelter, your flesh and your blood, someone that you say you love, that's not, it comes across like it's conditional love, because she's not saying that he's out gang banging, and it sounds like, based on what she's saying, that he's a well-adjusted person that fell on hard times and is trying to figure his life out. His life. We agreed to disagree, and he said he'll be gone by Friday. I would do the same thing. In my situation, it was very similar. It was very similar. And I left too. Because to me that's mental abuse. And he's probably he obviously has trauma that stems from childhood, that he does not want to be involved with this. And that is his choice. To say, well, that's the rules. Okay, that's something he agreed to, but you didn't take time to find out, like, why. You didn't, I mean, I don't know, maybe he did say it, because she didn't say that inside of the status, but he's obviously like unpacking and figuring things out spiritually. And it's okay for Christianity to not be okay. He grew up as a Christian. He grew up going to church. I grew up liking red, the color red. Now I like the color brown. It's okay. People are allowed to change their mind. As long as he's a well-adjusted person trying to do the right thing, focus on that. Focus on that. Because, like I said, he's in your room, under your roof. What was he doing that was so bad? Because typically when you put somebody out, like, enough is enough. Like, what did he do so bad that you tell your own son, your own flesh and blood, you gotta go? Because he didn't go to church. That's manipulative. It's controlling. It's abusive. And it's uncouth, and it's, to me, it's unbecoming as a person. It's unbecoming as a person. I grew up in the church, and like the values of the church is like the man is the head of the household, but it doesn't even seem like he had a say in what was going to happen with their child. Well, so my husband told me I was wrong because he has to find himself. So my husband, so is that not his biological father? Maybe it's not his biological father. So she feels like she can make those decisions because of this child being bi. That's the only reason that's the only thing I can really think of that would make somewhat sense for the woman of the household to go over the man of the house to to do something like that, as if the man isn't biologically his father. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying, thinking about what makes sense. Like, what would possess a woman to do that? Especially if you say that you go to church and you have all these values and beliefs and you call all these scriptures. And by Wednesday, my son was gone. I went from talking to him daily to once a week, maybe, but he talks to his father daily. Was I wrong for putting him out? I don't think so, because my house, my rules, but I want an outside opinion. You have traumatized your son even more, and you have fucked up the relationship. Even if y'all move past this, he would never forget that. He would never forget that, because he was coming to you without nothing. And because this is my house, this is my rules, you gotta go. What? That's brutal. That's brutal. That's brutal. To ask if you're wrong, you know you're wrong. And you know why your son doesn't talk to you as often. He should have been allowed to figure it out on his own, like this, his spiritual well-being, because now he's not going to go to church at all. He's not going back to church. It this is going to be a play on words, but it's going to take an act of God to get him back in the church, because it's definitely not the mama. It's not the mom. It's not the mom. Yikes. I hope that she still has innate natural motherly instincts and empathy to know, like, you put your son out and he's probably struggling. He's probably going to struggle, to at least, if he needed money, if he needed something, she would do her best to give it to him. I think that she was moving in emotion and how she felt, and not thinking practically about, like, the relationship with her son, the trauma, the mental anguish he's now going to have to deal with. I think, especially when it comes to women think a lot with feelings and how they feel, and sometimes that clouds the better judgment of what is actually best for, if you say you unconditionally love your child, what's best for that situation to preserve that. If we're talking about unconditional love, this is a hot mess. And I feel bad for him. I feel terrible for him, whoever this person is. Because the one person that is supposed to be your protection and take you in, I don't give a fuck about rules. Please stop. Stop, people. Because there's some people defending the behavior, defending that. And it's black people, of course. The tides are changing, and what was now acceptable when it comes to religion, because it was like pretty much beat into a lot of us, we're now waking up and saying, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want, if something like that is going to make me treat people this way, I don't want nothing to do with it. I know for me personally, I'll be homeless and sleep in my car before I ever go back to, live with parents that have that expectation. Like, because I'd rather do that. And that's sad. And people don't see the issue with that. But that's all I got to say. What are you guys' opinion on this matter? It seems like there's kind of like a stalemate where it's half and half, and there's this right wing, left wing situation. I just want people to remember, like, decency and humanity and empathy. All this stuff, before you even get to church and spirituality, like, who are you at your core? Who are you at your core? That's what I want people to really think of. Anyways, this was a heavy one, so I'm gonna go. Because honestly, this triggered the fuck out of me. Poor kid, poor guy. All I gotta say is, keep going like Isaiah. Will you be